So when I was asked to come and address you lovely people in celebration of Women's Day and to talk about slow food and to talk about women, the first thing that I remembered is growing up and being with my gran in her garden. Now, I'm not sure about any of you, but for me, food was an integral part of how I grew up. My gran came from Lebanon. She arrived here as a 23-year-old lady, and she couldn't speak a word of English. And because she seemed to look a little bit darker than most, she was immediately split from her husband and spent 2 years in a community that taught her about South African food. So I was very privileged growing up to be in a garden that had the most remarkable array of food. We would walk down pavements and do what currently is called foraging. We saw it as enjoying our environment and learning to eat the most incredible flavors. So, for me, food has been more than just simply something that you do, something that's mindless. And I think as women, in this day and age in particular, there's more pressure on us than ever before. We feel pressurized to have the perfect career. We feel, thank you so much. We feel pressurized to ensure that we achieve great levels of success as parents, as entrepreneurs like myself. And along the way, food, I think, becomes a critical element of expressing ourselves. If I may, I don't know how many of you, maybe just a quick indication of hands, has heard of slow food. Anyone in the room? Yeah? A few people? So for those who don't know slow food, it's not a method of cooking. It's actually an international organization that started in the 1980s, was founded by the most remarkable group of 3 Italian men who sat on their piazza in Turin and watched as McDonald's bought a building, and they were absolutely horrified. They immediately, in true Italian fashion, shouted out, "How could this be? They're bringing us this fast food. Well, we're going to send them our slow food." And so the organization was born. And in 30 years, it's now represented in 170 countries around the world. And for me, it's a true, wonderful expression of all that we're trying to achieve in this modern age. The first thing which I think we as South Africans need to embrace and possibly celebrate more is the Ark of Taste project that they're involved in. The Ark of Taste is run by the Biodiversity Foundation for Slow Food, and what this seeks to do is identify foods from around the world that are in threat of vanishing from our plate. So whether it's ingredients that are grown, or whether it's methods of producing food that we're about to lose, the Ark of Taste celebrates these things, and they call to people around the world to register them. And in registering them, we finally have ourselves a wonderful comprehensive list of all those foods that we should be eating and celebrating, the same things that my gran took me down the streets of Durban and taught me how to eat. The next thing that slow food does that, again, I think is remarkable, and we really should be celebrating it, is they recognize what they call presidia. And these are groups of people who are still engaged in authentic, true indigenous expressions of food production. One of the best examples we have in this country, and very few people know about it, is Beleni salt. Beleni salt is actually one of the few salts in the world that comes from sand that's washed through river water that's harvested. And just on 10 years ago, there was a group of 8 ladies who were discovered harvesting salt in this method. We formed a presidia slow food around them so we could actively promote the salt that they harvest. And this salt is now sought after by some of the most incredible supermarkets around the world. So if you were to go to the UK and go to Harrods, for example, you'll find Beleni salt there. Slow Food's been able to protect this, declare them a presidia, and actively talk about how we can find salt and other minerals through using ancient techniques of harvesting. Slow Food is also the most remarkable organization when it comes to highlighting aspects of good, clean, and fair food, which actually is Slow Food's motto. It's about embracing biodiversity, but looking for all that is good, clean, and fair. So a lot of people say to me, "Oh, sounds a little bit like an organization for hippies, sandals and candles type." But the truth is, it's an organization that's dedicated to going and finding those small producers, those who are most marginalized. And as a lot of you can understand, this generally are women. These are the women who are working our rural gardens. These are the women who are working our rooftop gardens. These are women who are doing herding jobs because the youngsters have left the rural areas to come to the cities because they want fast cars, briefcases, iPhones and laptops. And so for slow food, finding good, clean and fair food is more than just simply a search. It's search and connect. So we are in the Johannesburg Convivia, and in fact South Africa is a Convivia. We try and host events where we can bring together producers and consumers in a convivial way. So it's always with fun, but always the message is loud and clear. Good, clean and fair food is what we should be pursuing and what we need to be actively putting onto our plates. Slow food also is very aligned to certain key people. One of them is Anna Trapida, who is a well-known journalist. She's also written a number of international cookbooks that have won awards. One of her most famous was cooking Nelson Mandela's recipes from when he was a youngster to just before he passed on. Her latest book is called Eat Ting. And for those in the room who know Ting, I'm not sure how many ladies do, it is one of those amazingly wonderful dishes, something that completely fits in with what slow food is trying to do. Take heritage foods and remind people that they're full of goodness and flavor, aren't they? I think so too. And so when we as slow food align with people like that, the idea is to show people that not only is this about preserving what is good, clean and fair, but actually it can be delicious, and that there is a modern place for this kind of food. The last thing that I was hoping to address with you today and to talk briefly about is there's a major campaign that we're about to launch in Soweto on the 3rd of September at Soweto Theatre. This will be the first time that we are able to bring together our 10,000 Food Gardens project, which is the most remarkable project already in Soweto. I'm not sure how many of you know this, but we have over 1,400 urban gardeners. These are people who are growing food not just for themselves, but have enough to sell. Most of us are not aware of this. We look at Soweto and we think that this is a dead food zone, made up of really bad taxis, quite an unsafe place to go if you're living in the middle class suburbs, and possibly a place you want to avoid at all costs. But the truth is that it's a place that's rich not just in culture but in food as well. And so part of the 3rd of September celebrations for Soweto Eatin is to bring these farmers and to have their products on display so we can actively talk and promote them. And you can find out how easy it is to eat within the city. On the 3rd of September, we'll also be having a competition. Now, my personal background, at the moment, I'm a butcher. And it's something I'm passionate about. And I'm passionate about finding small farmers whose food is needed to come onto our table so we don't lose them. And that are doing things in a good, clean and fair way. So it's free range, it's grass-fed, free of routine growth promoters and antibiotics. But more importantly, they have our heritage breeds. They have our Afrikaners, they have our Ngunis, they have our Zulu sheep. And so on the 3rd of September, we've invited 12 chef schools to come and to cook one of these beautiful Nguni animals from nose to tail in the best way that chefs know how. Sexy up these cuts, make them look amazing and delicious, and get us all back into the kitchens to cook and try and replicate these gorgeous meals. The winner of that chef's competition will receive a prize, but the true prize, I think, will be everyone who gets to eat the meals that are being presented on that day. The last part of this very exciting activity that we're going to be engaged in is a conference. And it's the first ever food conference that will have very strict academics. So we'll be honored with the presence, for example, of Dr. Nordia Malan, who is, well, in the anthropology department. His special focus is on the economics of urban agriculture. We have some of our slow food people present. I see Lorraine Jenks is here. I know she's going to be on the panel talking as well. We are also going to have food gardeners themselves, talking about things such as the difficulty of accessing the modern market. And how is it that you and I can sit in our nice little walled-off suburbs but still access their food? And in fact, looking for their food and finding an alternate way to channel our money directly into their pockets. So the conference itself there's 6 different topics covering everything from the how to grow to how to sell to how to eat and enjoy. Lastly, slow food for me has become more than just simply a great thing to do on the side. It truly has become my passion because I've realized that the way to get the most marginalized people to the fore of our society is to actively promote them and to do it in a convivial way. Slow food is all-inclusive. Slow food is about celebrating all that we are. And as Women's Day approaches, it brings me straight back to my gran. Being Lebanese, I must tell you that her philosophy is very simple. If you're sad, you need to eat. If you are happy, you need to eat. And as we celebrate today, so we need to eat. Ladies, thank you so much.
The University of Johannesburg. Rethink, reinvent.